Now, we will talk about the Book of Five Rings, basically, but put a subtitle there, Understanding, Translating Miyamoto Musashi, because as Professor Esenbe already introduced, I have translated this text a couple of years ago, and we published this translation in Turkish, of course. I translated it in Turkish in 2017. But to my surprise, the copies just sold out in a few months. So I started working in a second edition because I had in mind to include some other texts, if possible, to this book. But, pandemic just entered in between. So I had the time, in a way, to work more on the text and, prepare the second edition, which is an extended edition, and which just came out about a week ago. So I'm very happy that it's in my hands now, because it is one of the first attempts in the world. Let me state that to bring all the texts related to Miyamoto Musashi and written by him in one book. So within the book, not only the Book of Five Rings, but also his other texts like Dokkodo, which means, I will introduce that too, which means the way to uniqueness, 21 precepts, and also I included the 35 principles of Bushido, and also included the memorial inscription of his, which was built by his son Iori, which still, stands in Kyushu. That's another text that's about him. And I also put, let's say, rather short, 40 or 50 pages, introducing his life and his works and his times. Okay, now, today I will, divide my talk into basically 4 sections. First of all, I'd like to introduce, but I'm sure that most of you are familiar, so maybe remind you of the basic concepts of Bushido, what we will be talking about. And then I will go into Miyamoto Musashi and his life, and, and what kind of a person he was. And then we will come to the Book of Five Rings and the teachings of Musashi in that book, because I believe they have the books, or the chapters, what he has written has a message that transcends geography and time. It has messages that everybody can take and implement his or her own life even today. It is surprising. This man is a genius, I believe, and I will talk about him now. And then I will, use the final part to talk more about the translation issues and, little things that I came across, and the things I want to share with you about the process. Now, when we talk about Bushido, we talk about the way of the samurai. Bushido means the way of the samurai, or the way of the warrior. Okay. But the basic concepts that we will be dealing with when we talk about Bushido is art of war or strategy, also leadership. So it is not only about warriors per se. Oh, my cat. Just a moment. I have to readjust myself. Okay. It is not only about warriors or soldiers or commanders, because in our times we don't have to, take a katana, the Japanese sword, in our hands and try to fight others on the streets. But there's another fight, there's another battle, there's another war in all of our lives. We struggle to reach our targets and, to accomplish certain things. So that's why it is meaningful in that sense too. So when we look at this text, we are not talking about only iaijutsu, that is the techniques of using sword or sword fencing or swordsmanship. We are also talking about leadership, which I like to call strategic leadership, because he's giving some hints that could be used for in the strategical sense, not only in the short time, but in a longer, let's say, time span. Okay. Now, the word Bushido is written with these three characters: Bu, Shi, Do. So this one is Bu, this one is Shi, this one is Do. Okay, what does it mean? Obviously, the way of the samurai, but the way of the warrior, let's say. So this is the final, the third character, kanji character, means the way. Like in Kendo, like in Iaido, Karate Do, or you name it, Sado, Kado, Kodo. There are many Japanese words, most of them related with martial arts, including Do in themselves. What does it mean? It means way. So it's the very same thing as Taoism. That's Tao. Tao is Do, so it's a way. Well, the first part, let's say, or the other two characters here, the second one, the one in the middle, means gentleman or a warrior. The core of meaning comes from the first kanji here. It is Bu, Mu. So I want to focus a little bit on that in trying to understand what Bushido means. So this is Bu. It means art of war, or at times it means war or weapons or valor or fighting spirit. It can be, or it can be used in any context or in any word or term that is related with military or warriors. Okay, so let's keep it this way. This is art of war. It is used in many terms, like the way of the art of war, Budo. This is a popular term in martial arts, Budo, or Buke, like military families in Japanese history, or warrior like Bujin, martial arts, Bujutsu, warrior, Buyu, the courage to fight, or another word for samurai, Musha. Well, I have a feeling that some of you have watched the movies of Akira Kurosawa. One of his movies is called Kagemusha. It means the shadow warrior. And that Musha is this Musha. So this kanji is whether pronounced as Bu, as Bujutsu, Bushi, Budo, or Mu, like in Musha. What's interesting here is that Miyamoto Musashi has used the same character in his name. This is a name that he has assumed himself. Musashi, you see, this is warrior, art of war. This is in his name. And Sashi or Zo means depot, a place where something is stored, storage. So he means with his name, obviously he has designed his own name too, Musashi. He means he is the one where art of war, the knowledge of art of war has been collected, gathered, and focused and concentrated. Well, we'll see how genius he is. Okay. Now, in order to understand this word, I like to go into the details of its components, its design. I believe letters are magic. They have a magic power, especially the kanji. The ideographs in the kanji world carry, let's say, abstract meanings. So when you go into the components, its construction, you have an idea what it was meant to be when it was created, invented, designed by its designer, the first designer. You see, now, this character is composed of three parts. One of them is here. It means one. The second one is here. It means to stop. And the third one is here. It's a bit large. You see this horizontal line and this hook-like part here and a dot. This means blackness, darkness, floating, etc. But in various sense, it means you can understand it as uncertainty. So, if you want to define Bu or the art of war, we come to this conclusion: art of war is to unite your resources, your human capital, your materials, your experience, your you name it, your knowledge, everything, to unite, unify, to become one, to make one, to focus, to concentrate, in order to stop, to halt, to put an end to uncertainty or chaotic situations or anything that lies between your target and yourself. So this is the essential meaning that is hidden within the kanji itself. It is not coincidence. It is not a coincidence. Then it became a core term in the samurai or warrior world. Now, the term Bushido was introduced into the West, into Western languages. Well, this time it is English, by a person, a Japanese national called Nitobe Inazo. And his first book introducing Bushido and the samurais, the samurai values, was published in the United States in 1900. And when it was published, it quickly became popular because Mr. Nitobe had studied his, let's say, his art of war or related subjects very well, and he knew knighthood, the Western code of chivalry, very well, and he is making very, let's say, intelligent connections between the two warrior classes. So the codes of the knights, the chivalry codes, and etc. He's quite, let's say, masterfully binds the two together and introduces Bushido as a concept to the Western world. So there he has established the foundation of Bushido that is known and is popular among the countless dojos of martial arts around the world. This is an important word, let me say. I cannot emphasize it enough, because the Japanese culture is living in dojos all around the world. You name it, in all the countries, in all the smallest or biggest countries, in all the developing or developed countries, in the core or the periphery. It doesn't matter. It's everywhere. It's there with the dojos of, let's say, Kendo, Iaido, Aikido. I'm sure you're all familiar with these words, Aikido or others. So, Nitobe Inazo has introduced 7 principles of being of Bushido. These are the keywords. The first, he says, is justice, gi, bravery, yu, benevolence, jin, veracity, makoto, politeness, rei, honor, meiyo, loyalty, chugi. Well, with all due respect to him, I have some, let's say, reserves in accepting them as they are, because these are the values that are selected by Nitobe Inazo himself in order to promote Bushido, which I have no problem with, but it has to have, if you're building a theory, it has to have some firm basis, a foundation, a strong background to it. These are values that can be attributed to any warrior class around the world in the global history. Well, now, my alternative I came up with, according to my understanding, has that foundations as far as I can see in Japanese history. Now, these are the 5 Confucian values of a leader, which is called Gojo, or the 5 constants. This concept entered into Japan with the introduction of Confucianism itself, even with the introduction of Ritsuryo system, the laws and regulations that were brought from the Tang China. When the first Japanese central state was established in 7th century, the court cap system was based on these 5 constants, the Gojo, the Confucian virtues. Okay, what are they? It's this. First of them, first of all the character traits a leader should have, according to Confucius, is empathy. I mean, if you remember in the previous slide, you have seen this kanji, and it was written. Let me show you. Let me show you there. This kanji is the same kanji, and here it is translated as benevolence. I don't object that. It's also true. It is in the meaning of this kanji. Also, some translated it as compassion, which is also true. Okay, but when we dive into the world of meaning, we have to find. We must yearn to find the core of the meaning itself. So when I go there, I find empathy. Why? As you can see, there are 2 parts of this kanji. And the first part, the radical, is hito. It means men. Well, not necessarily, gender-based men. It means human being, men. And the other part, the other component means two. So here, the designer of this kanji meant, and the user, Confucius also related, obviously, is one person becoming two. The ability to put yourself in shoes of the other, to become the other, to think like the other. So it's empathy. The first of all character traits a leader should have, according to the, let's say, Japanese samurai or the kanji culture world in Asia in ancient times, since ancient times, is empathy. A leader should have empathy, not sympathy, not necessarily sympathy, like a doctor, a doctor does not have to sympathize with his or her patient, but has to do empathy. Okay, that's the difference. Now, the second is morality. This also happens to be in the list of Nitobe Inazo, but with another context. People like to call this as justice. In most of the translations in the West, we see justice in a place of gi, but it is not exactly justice. It includes justice, but the word gi, how can I explain, is used for the main rule of existence in the universe. What I mean by that is there is a way, according to Lao Tzu, which, the way is the concept that he has based his Taoism, the whole thing is about it. that way is the rule that the universe revolves around. So there is a way that is true and correct, and what it isn't is wrong. You know what I mean? I'm sure you can follow. So morality is the ability of human being to divide, to realize, to consciously choose between right and wrong. The ability to recognize what is right, what is wrong. That is morality. That's ethics. That is expected from a leader. The third one, manners or etiquette. I mean, there are many times that I'm asked by people who are interested in Asian values, especially in Japan, why do they respect each other so much? And, you know, how respectful a nation can be. I mean, there is an admiration there. But this is a value that is proposed by Confucius. It has its long, deep roots there in history. It is manners, etiquette. One has to know how to behave in an environment, or in each environment he or she enters into. Okay, this is what the samurai used to call reading the air. Mm-hmm. You have to know to read the atmosphere as soon as you enter a new, let's say, space. You have to calculate who is superior, who is inferior, who is good, who is bad, who is elegant, who is coarse, etc. You have to have that. You have to cultivate that ability in yourself, and this is required for the leader. The fourth one is knowledge, wisdom. A leader should know and must be eager to learn more, must be flexible, must not stop somewhere and, at a certain point and say, I know everything and everybody should learn from me. Knowledge is a continuous process. So this is knowledge. And the fifth one is especially important, I believe, because it is trust. Not in the sense that not only in the sense that you must be trustable, but also you must trust others. You must be self-confident, but people must be able to confide in you too. And the kanji carries the secret of this concept too. Here, I'm sure, even if you don't know Chinese or Japanese, you are not familiar with this component, this, part here. It is the radical, it means men. And what's there in the second part? There is a rectangle here, and there are lines, coming out of, symbolically speaking, coming out of that rectangle, that box. That box stands for the mouth. So what comes out of mouth? You tell me. Words. This means word. So the person who stands by his or her words, keeps his or her promises, whatever the cost is, becomes the trustable person. A leader must be trustable. And if he or she does the other four, the previous four, so empathize with others, be moral, keep with the manners, and try to increase his or her knowledge, the trust will follow. Dear friends, I mean, all this time I have been working with the Japanese in the business world, in the academia, in wherever you name it. I came to this conclusion that they are consciously trying to do this. And it is all, I have the feeling, is based on Bushido, not consciously, not necessarily, but This code of conduct and let's say worldview is taught to masses by the education system. Okay. Another Bushido concept that I want to introduce you today, in order for you to understand, to have a better view of Bushido, is Chigyo Goitsu. This term, this phrase. This was, sorry, okay. This was especially an important phrase during the Tokugawa period in the 250 years of peace in Japan, where the samurai, during which the samurai dominated the whole society. Chigyo Goitsu. It was so important that even the samurai's income was called Chiko Taka, the amount of the samurai's Chiko. The same kanji were used. What does it mean? The unity of knowledge and action. So in this worldview, you may know things, but if you don't attune your, let's say, actions with it, if you don't do what's necessary when it's necessary, that means you don't know. If you know the right, you should show the right. That's why. But on the other hand, it's true both ways. I mean, if you're a wise person, you act like a wise person, right? But this way of thinking says, if you act like if you are taught, if you are trained how to act like a wise person, then you become wise too. You know, that's why etiquette becomes important. Manners become important. I don't know if you remember, but several years ago, there was this World Soccer Championship in Brazil. And the Japanese spectators, they cleaned the places that they sit after the match was over, and all the world look at them with admiration. But nobody joined and cleaned their own places, but they appreciated what the Japanese do. But this is how they live. It is normal for them. Why? Because they are taught so. The code of conduct says, if you act one way, you become that way. Okay. The final concept that I want to introduce or remind you today is this concept, because it is also core for the samurai values. It is called the Bumbu Ryodo. Bumbu Ryodo. There are 4 kanjis here. Bun, Bu, Ryodo. Each means, Bun stands for culture or arts of peace. I like to call it arts of peace. And then the next one, you already know this now, right? I have explained it in a few slides ago. Bu, the same Bu, stands for art of war. Ryo means double or twofold. And the way you already know this too, like Kendo, Iaido, Aikido, right? The way. So it's the twofold way of pen and sword, or as I like to call it, brush and sword. This is a core concept in understanding the samurai or the Japanese. Well, I will explain a little bit more later. I'll elaborate. But as far as I can understand, this is creative leadership. Because this code says, in order to excel in arts of war, you have to cultivate your artistic, let's say, skills and understanding. You have to have aesthetic understanding, the power of aesthetics. Because art shows the samurai what cannot be seen by others. the ability, the talent, the power to see the unseen or the unseeable is a core power for a warrior, because then you can let's say you can foresee the movements of your opponent before it occurs. That's why it was a valued skill. Okay, now I'd like to go into the topic of Miyamoto Musashi. I'd like to introduce him very, simply to you. It is not that easy. I have written about, I don't know, 50 or 60 pages in the book. So it is not that easy, but I will just, bring forth some important aspects of his life or his character. Miyamoto Musashi is a samurai that was born in 1584 at the end of the Warring States period, Sengoku period of Japan. He was born in a province called Harima, and he was the son of a martial artist himself. His father was a teacher of martial arts, including ninjutsu, usage of various weapons, and etc. He had his initial education of martial arts from his father. But interestingly, he would excel to unforeseeable levels until he died in 1645 in Kumamoto, down south in Kyushu. Okay. Now, Miyamoto Musashi had become a legend as a swordsman, and he's still remembered vividly in Japanese culture for the deeds he had done. He's like a figure of Hercules. He is like Fudomyo in a way. Interestingly, he has as a sculptor, he has prepared a Fudomyo sculpture. I will show a little bit later. A Buddhist icon of a warrior, let's say. He is revered and respected, and he is a topic for many creative works of artists. Now here we see a woodblock print that, showing how he fought with a bat, giant bat. In the second one, he is fighting with another beast. Here we see a woodblock print showing fighting with skillfully with his opponents. This is from late 19th century. There are also modern depictions of Miyamoto Musashi. He's an idealized warrior. So he didn't look like this exactly, but contemporary artists, they love him, his story, and they introduced Miyamoto Musashi to the new generations with new ways of portraying him. This is another portrait by another artist, a Japanese movie about Musashi. Mm-hmm. Another drama of NHK, Taiga drama. It means it lasted long. It was a long series. In all cases, he is enacted by the most popular and talented artists of Japan. And also in animes, in animations, in games, you will find him as a strong character standing against injustices and etc. He is such a big legend. Also, in this woodblock print here, you can see his legendary fight against a legendary opponent called Sasaki Kojiro. And this fight is an actual fight, a duel that was done on the date April 13, 1612. Because Musashi had started dueling and challenging famous swordsmasters all around the country since 13 years old. Can you believe it? since 13 years old. His first duel was when he was 13 with a swordsmaster, a famous swordsmaster who had come from another province and who had challenged anybody who would, dare to come and fight with him. And interestingly, our little 13-year-old Musashi wrote his name on the list that challenged this fighter. And the next day, although his uncle tried hard to convince the famous swordsmaster to forgive this little child, he said, well, he was confident, and he said, well, he has to come himself tomorrow morning to the place that we will do our duel, and then he will apologize in person. Then I will forgive him. But Musashi went there and he didn't apologize, and he fought, and he left the field with victory. And after that, until he was 30 years old, until this duel that we see here that happened in April 13, he participated in 60 duels, and in all the 60 he was victorious. He was invincible. He was famous during his youth throughout the country too as a swordsmaster. But Sasaki Kojiro was a famous swordsmaster, and Musashi went to the Ganryujima. As a matter of fact, I lived very close to Ganryujima, but then I didn't know, in a town called Shimonoseki, which is the sister city of Istanbul, by the way. And this sea that you see behind Musashi, who is flying, depicted as flying, by the way, is Shimonoseki Straits, the Kanmon Straits. When you go there, you can still see the Ganryujima, the island, the little island that this duel took place. Anyhow, what I want to emphasize here is that you can see he's depicted with two swords in his two hands. He says in the Book of Five Rings, one has to use all his weapons before dying. Is it all right to die with your weapons sashed in your belly? He asks. He means that you have to try your best to realize your true potential. You have to do everything in your might to win against all odds. So the text of Gorinsho, the Book of Five Rings, is so interesting. It has levels of meaning in it. You can read it as a yaijutsu or techniques of fencing superficially, but if you go deeper and deeper, you will find parallel meanings. So after this fight, this exact fight, he changes his way of living. He started asking questions to himself. We will see what he asked. Okay. Well, he is so famous that this scene is so famous that he's depicted here with Sasaki Kojiro and this fight here in a sculpture as a monument at Ganryujima. Let me not forget, he arrived at the meeting point, the appointment place, almost 3 hours later than he promised. This is a message that he's giving. The fight starts before you go to the battlefield. When you go there, it is the fight. Even if you sleep, it is the fight. You're fighting the final battle. So that's the message we can get from his teaching. Okay. Now, Musashi, as a swordsmaster, as I said, is famous, but it is not enough. He's a Renaissance man. There are very few people who has demonstrated so big a talent in so many areas. He's a calligrapher. I mean, he didn't give too many, let's say, works, but his works are masterpieces of calligraphy. For example, here it says fighting spirit. You can see how bold his brush strokes are. He's an artist, a sumie artist, a sumie artist, I mean, ink painting artist. These are all his works. And he is counted among the sumie artists in Japanese art history. These are all his works. He is a designer. This is a saddle he has designed. This is a sword, and this is a scabbard he has designed. He is a sculptor. As I said, this is Fudomyo, the Buddhist, let's say, one of the wisdom kings, enlightened, immovable king of Buddhist pantheon, one of the 5 great kings. But this is a work by Musashi. He is a garden designer, Japanese garden, Zen garden designer. I took only 2 samples here, but there are other gardens that he had designed. He is also an urban planner, and he was functional in designing the Akashi Castle and the city during his lifetime. Now, maybe the most important work that he has done is the Book of Five Rings. It is the culmination of his whole life. And that's why he is a writer and thinker. And this is the book that I mentioned, the Turkish translation of the Book of Five Rings that I did in 2017. Now we have this one. Well, this one in my hand. I'm happy. I have included my own calligraphy, dedicated to him on the cover. But this book is the extended version of the Book of Five Rings. Now, let's go into the Book of Five Rings. This book, this text is translated into almost all languages in the world. In most of them, not once, many times. If you write in the Amazon, the Book of Five Rings, you will see many versions of it. So, I mean, some people say a person dies when the last person that knows your name dies. Miyamoto Musashi seems to live forever. His name will live, obviously, in many languages. So, you see, I mean, in Arabic, in Persian, in Thai, in you name it, Italian, in Russian, these are only a few examples. Now, let's come to the text. There are many versions of Musashi's text. The original itself is extinct. We don't know where it is now. The one that was written by Musashi himself in that cave in Kumamoto in 1643 does not exist. It is not found yet, at least. But that we know that he had given his handwriting to his disciple called Terao Magonojo, and that disciple, he was a follower of Musashi in the school of Emmeiryu, or the Niten Ichiryu, or the school of two swords, or the, let's say, which I like to translate, the Niten Ichiryu, the school of fencing, that's called Two Worlds One. Two Worlds One, Niten Ichi. Many people like to translate that as two skies as one, because the kanji also means skies, but obviously Musashi meant two worlds as one. What he meant by worlds is this world, the other world. Dark, light. Day, night. Good, bad. Two as one. So, the text of Terao Maganojo is also not found, but there are connections that we find in the dojo, in the school of Musashi, the Enmei-ryu, at the places that the tradition still survives. So there are families who have the old copies of scrolls in their archives. So researchers have done meticulous research on in trying to find the real copy, let's say. But we know that it was, well, there are also some copies, hundreds of copies all around the country, but they are excluded from such, scholarly research because they are known from they're from 19th or 20th centuries. But these are the main copies that we know to survive from the 17th or early 18th centuries, like Nakayama archive, or the Tachibana archive, or the Echigo Ishii archive, Hosokawa archive. These are all samurai families. The oldest copy that we know of from the 17th century is the in this last one. Sorry. Sorry. I will turn back. Yep. The Yoshida family has this copy, and these are the writings here. So I was lucky because I didn't have to do that long and cumbersome research myself. The Harima Miyamoto Musashi Kenkyukai, the Research Association of Harima, the place that he was born, there is a very good association there who has done that research and found, arrived at a authoritative text that they used by analyzing all these texts together and had done comparisons and etc. There is almost a final text we have in hand, so I focused on that. I translated it from the 17th century original. It took time. I mean, this was a project for over 10 years for me. I had been taking notes for a long while, but I started focusing on, concentrating on this job for about 5 years ago. So I cannot say it was an easy task because the Japanese that is used in the 17th century during the times of Miyamoto Musashi is not that similar to what's used now in modern Japan. But, I was used to some, to a certain extent, I was used to this type of usage of language. During my PhD studies, I studied the early Meiji period texts and some earlier even. So, well, it was an enjoyable journey for me. Now, he starts the book of Five Rings with the following words. He says, "I'm a samurai born in Harima province. My name is Shinmen Musashi no Kami Fujiwara no Harurabu. I have reached the age of 60. I have wandered all around the country and confronted many masters of various schools of strategy, dueled for 60 times, and never once lost the upper hand. These happened between 13 and 28, 29 years of age. After 30, I looked back and realized that I hadn't won those victories due to my maturity in art of war. Then, with the hope of reaching the profound meaning of the way, I worked nonstop, day and night, and I was 50 when I met the way of the art of war naturally. Since then, without having a way to look for, I'm living shadow and light. So I'm passing my time. That's what it means." Now, he has organized his writing in 5 sections. His intelligence is obvious right from the start. The book is not called the Book of Five Rings by himself exactly, but it was an obvious option in the second half of 19th century, when it also became, once again became popular with the major restoration. Because he has divided his text into 5 chapters, and those 5 chapters each stand for an element in the 5-element theory. As you know, the 5 elements, according to this tradition, which is more popular in Japan as opposed to China, it is also a Buddhist understanding of universe. These elements are assumed to be the elements composing all matter. What are they? It is called the 5 great, the Godai. Just like the Godai, the same is used for the 5 wisdom kings. That's something Jennifer might be interested in. The same 5 great. It is used for the 5 wisdom kings. Ground, water, fire, wind, and void. So, what does this mean? Although it is called the 5 rings, it is only a symbol. There is no ring or whatsoever. It is a veil that hides the real symbolic meanings behind. The 5 rings is crystallized in this form, and it is called the Tower of 5 Rings, and it is located in most of the Buddhist temples solemnly or modestly in the entrances. The Tower of 5 Rings. So it is nothing like the 5 rings of the Olympics. It is possible, on the other hand, when people thought about the 5 rings of Olympics, somebody might have an idea about Musashi. I doubt that. It is possible. But, okay, that's not the point. Here, this is the Tower of 5 Rings. So, you see, instead of circles, we find other geometric designs. This is the ground. It is rectangular. This is water, just above it. This is fire. It is pyramidal. This is a sphere, by the way. Water is represented by a sphere. Pyramid is fire. Half moon is wind. Almond shape is void. So void stands on top of all elements. Why? Because void complements existence, complements the matter. So void is not non-existent. It exists in this line of thought. Okay. Now, he says, strategy is the craft of warriors. Commanders must implement this art and soldiers must know. On the left hand, you can see different keywords of art of war. The one on above, it's called Heiho. It means art of war. The one in the middle, Senryaku, it means strategy. And this final word here, Senjutsu, it is tactics. So these are all words that are used within this book. Okay. The main principles for those who wish to enter my way, he says, but the way of strategy, so being a leader of your society in all the fields of action, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a warrior in order to understand what he meant. He says, be straight in your thoughts, work with all your might, experience various arts and crafts, learn the ways of various professions, differentiate between merit and demerit in everything, like ghee, you know, if you remember a few slides ago, morality, as I said, not only justice, know how to tell good and bad in all situations, Understand the visible, the invisible by feeling it, by sensing it. This is important. You know, people ask me why Japanese pottery are so simple. Why kintsugi, you know, the art of mending broken pottery with gold is so popular in Japan, and why it is all because of this. You expect as a samurai, a master of Bushido to be able to understand the invisible only by feeling it. Attempt even the smallest detail, do nothing meaningless. Okay, now I'll try to give only a small introduction about each chapter, just to give you an idea. Now, the first one is called, the book of ground. I put here a rather, it may seem irrelevant to you, but it is for me, because in the ground chapter, he tells everything he is going to do within the book. This is another hidden message. I came to realize that he is giving another text within the text. What he means is that ground is the start of everything. It is the origin. It is where other things flourish, come from, originate. So ground is the solid basis that we stand on. If you think further and further, you will come to the conclusion that ground is, is the basis of our existence in that sense. I mean, if you don't have a solid ground under your feet, you will float. You cannot move forward. So in order to proceed forward, you have to have a firm ground, okay? This is the way to understand that. And what is the firm ground that we stand on as individuals? It's our history. It is our history. We stand our own on top of our own history, our previous experiences and knowledge, and everything we have done before, and that forms our identity. Musashi gives the hints, the clues that you have to, before starting your journey, you have to be sure of your identity, of your history, of your past, of what you know, what you like, what you are, let's say, what you have a talent for, what you're inclined to. Then a roadmap will come and you will know your, let's say, the way to go. Everything is about the way. The way is individual. You have to walk it yourself. Now, within the first chapter, he's introducing an interesting, let's say, metaphor for leadership. He says, to be a commander, to be a general, to be a commanding samurai, to be a leader, therefore, is just like being a carpenter. Well, I had difficulties talking about translation to translate it into Turkish, because there are a number of words in Turkish, like marangoz, like dülger, like ahşap ustası, etc. But this word, the concept, daiku, what it means to Japanese, doesn't exactly mean the same for the Turkish people. The same is true for the Western languages too, but we have to describe. So in the book, I try to explain what he means by that. He is combining architecture, the profession of an architect, with the profession of a carpenter. So he's talking about design. He's saying that the kanjis that are used in Japan for carpenter, explains what it is to be a commander, a leader. Why? Because there are two kanjis here. The first one means great, grand. The second one means design, craft, plan. So it is the grand craft he continues to elaborate his metaphor, and he says, just like a head carpenter, a samurai, a master of art of war should know his own measurements, his own material, his own, let's say, tools. He should know the measurements abroad. He should know the designs of temples and his own house. He should also know the talents, and he should also know how to distinguish the various skills among people that he is going to assign his works. And he has to coordinate all of them together. So this is design. This is the grand design or the grand plan, and that's being a leader. So according to Musashi, he's giving all these as a list there. The characteristics for a leader are as follows: to take action decisively, to advance orderly once started acting, to do nothing but nothing sloppily, to know what really matters, to know, to realize the real core of the meaning of what's important, realize ups and downs in people's spirit and encourage them or motivate them whenever it is necessary, to know what is impossible. Now that's an interesting addition here. A leader must know what is impossible. And he says, these are the characteristics of a leader. And this is the essence of art of war. He says, on whichever way you walk, if you master your craft to a level second to none, you will glorify your name. This is the way of strategy. I mean, you can understand it if it is face value. I mean, like, you know, you have to work hard to be the best in the world, which is also true. And this is what I see in the Japanese society. Whatever craft they do, they try to do it best. But you can also read this as a roadmap to create a brand for your own name or for your company or your product or your service. Glorifying your name is to, create a brand in that sense. You have to be committed to be the best in the world in your own field. Okay, the second chapter is called the Book of Water, and he says, water, oh, just a moment, it's a bit dark. Okay, sorry. I think it's a bit better, right? I don't know if we have time. I mean, I forgot time, but I'm going to. we have passed half of it. Semiha, do we have time? I mean, how long?
I think yeah, we have about 10-15 minutes because you know you want to cover. I mean, it's an important topic, and you want to deal with the section on translation as well. Yeah.
Okay. So going forward, so he says, water takes the shape of a drop, but also an ocean. So it changes shape, and it takes the shape of the utensil it goes into. So one must be like that. So it is the principle of flexibility he is trying to tell us in the second chapter. Superficially speaking, when you read the text there, you can also see a text that's showing the techniques of using a sword according to Niten Ichiu school. But you have to, try to read the subtext there. This is what he means. He is saying that you have to be flexible through your lifetime. You must not be You must not fixate yourself. This is what he says. Itsuku wa shimuru te nari. Itsukazaru wa ikuru te nari. It means fixation is death. One who moves lives. I mean, this is a basic rule. All the commanders, when they go to the general staff academies, they are taught like this. You know, you have to be mobile. Okay. You have to be mobile. You must not stop learning. You have to be curious. I think curiosity is the main message we should take from the book of water. Curiosity. The person or the society who loses the feeling of curiosity will stop developing. I mean, I like to give the example of the Middle East. In the Middle Ages, Middle East was the source of knowledge, you know, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, you name it, geometry. It all flourished from the Middle East. But now, after the Crusades, I mean, this ability to be curious was transferred to the West, and there came Renaissance, Reform, and Enlightenment, Age of Discoveries, and the world changed. Whoever is curious, keeps being curious, deserves and finds success, according to Miyamoto Musashi. Okay, he says, if you have the power of knowledge, you can see the secrets of each and every environment. He always stresses several times what is called power of knowledge, bilgi gücü in Turkish. I find this interesting that he's putting a strong stress on power of knowledge. He's aware that the more you know, the more powerful you are. Now, the third chapter is the book of fire. He says, I will tell what I think about the battle itself, the battlefield, what you should do there in this book, because like fire, battle itself is fiery. It is violent. It changes shape quickly. You have to know how to adapt yourself to changing situations during a fight or struggle. So this is adaptability, but during the struggle itself, and if you cannot control, I mean, if you can control your power, you can use fire as something good. But if it's out of control, it will devastate, it will destroy you and your purposes. So this is the book of fire. A small quote from there. If you have to die, well, I have already mentioned a little bit. If you have to die, you must die with all your weapons exhausted. Is it all right to die with your swords on your belly? Oh, that's Momo, by the way, my cat. Okay. Now, okay. Secondly, I find this phrase really important. He says, today, if you can win against your yesterday's self, tomorrow you can beat novices, and later you will beat masters. What he means by that is that the real fight, the real struggle is against yourself. Real champions know it. They are aware. You don't really fight with the other. You fight with yourself. You try to be better than yourself. You know your limits. You know your talent. You know your skills. You know your level. So real champions, they fight against themselves. You will see the record breakers before starting their matches or let's say runs or their let's say endeavors. They concentrate. They cut out from the world. And I see that in Japanese, also other champions too, in sports especially. The fourth one is the Book of Wind. He says, just like the wind carries sounds and odors and smells from far areas, distant areas, one has to know, learn other styles, other cultures, other schools, others. To know the other is crucial. That's why he starts telling in details, in meticulous detail, about the ways and attitudes and techniques of each and every other schools of Bushido in his contemporary Japan. Now, he says, one who knows not the others will know not himself. You have to know others in order to know yourself. He says, beware, any tiny deviation from your way today will evolve into a large deviation by time. Wanting and excess in all things are the same. So, finally, the Book of Void. It's fascinating that the Book of Void is only one page, so small a text. His message is obvious there. If you have come as far as this point, I don't have to tell much to you. You will understand with few words. So, void. With this word, well, I am gradually entering into the translation part. With this kanji, I had to work on it. I had to think on it because it can mean void, but what is void? I mean, it is not an easy concept to understand. You can also say it is nothingness, it is emptiness, but do they really give us the meaning that we look for? So, while translating into Turkish, I turned into my own culture because, as Professor Assemble at the start introduced to you, I have written another book called The Janissary Brotherhood and Bektashism. So I had entered into the Sufism debates and, into the, let's say, texts of Sufis. There I had come across some important teachings which helped me in translating this concept of coup, I must confess. So in Buddhism, especially in Zen, we have 3 levels of existence, let's say. It is the world of the you, that is this world, the mundane world, the world where things are, they exist. And next comes the world of mu, where, well, this is a negation, obviously, where the world where let's say, existent is absent. This is the absence level. And on top of that, there is ku. This is the highest point a Buddhist, Zen Buddhist monk might yearn for. And it is written with the same kanji, as you can see. By the way, have you realized that this small component here is the very same component that Musashi used in describing leadership and carpentry? This is design. This is creativity. This is planning and implementing, executing. And this one stands for acts of heavens, skies. This is the skies, this is action. So the ideas, the vision that's coming from above and turning into plans and designs and creativity. So, okay, so it's not only the void is not nothingness.
Mm.
It lives, it creates, it exists, it interferes, it is there. There is something there. Okay? This is the, well, it is fascinating how this designer, thousands of years ago, of this kanji, thought about this and, you know, depicted this concept in this little ideograph. So, when I looked into Tasawwuf, Sufism, I came across some similar concepts. According to this concept, the first level of existence is not existence, let's say, the first level in advancement, let's say, intellectually as a dervish, is terki dünya. So it accepts the world of material world, the mundane, but the monk, the thinker, the pathfarer aims to leave the mundane for the sake of the other world. Okay, so the other world, the second level, is terki ukba. When you reach the other world, symbolically, philosophically, you will yearn for leaving, abandoning the otherworldly. And the highest level for tasawwuf is, well, this is also fascinating. It says, terki terk, abandonment of abandonment. There is a level that you abandon. Well, there's no word there. We are, you know, as a translator, you have difficulties. As a human being, you have difficulties to, you know, try to tell what they mean. But everything is over there. But it is not an end in itself. So it is varlık, yokluk, boşluk or hiçlik. Boşluk. In our contemporary Turkish, there is a kind of derogatory or negative meaning in boşluk. Boşluğa düşmek, to fall into nothingness. We don't much, you know, like that much. But when I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that I should use boşluk because boşluk, the emptiness, which is not really empty, is combining the others. It is everything that is in between other elements. Just, you know, visualize an atom in your mind. There is this nucleus, neutrons, electrons, positrons, but there is emptiness, void in between. So the void is not extinct, it is not absent, it is there and it complements. So it is the spirit in that sense of what you do. Okay, well, this is a long discussion. I don't want to go further to it, but with his words, void is that anything extant is in fact non-extant. Therefore, naturally, void is non-extant too. If you know the extant, you can understand the extinct, and by time, you will understand the meaning of the void. So, the more you know about Bushido, the more about history, the more about philosophy, mindset, Buddhism, various forms of Buddhism, and kanjis and etc., you finally have start to have a feeling that you are coming to a point that you have a glimpse of what Miyamoto Musashi is trying to say. It is not that easy. He continues, he says, ones who grasp the true meaning of the way can distance themselves from it. They move on the way of strategy with infinite freedom and reach a natural but mysterious for others uniqueness. Well, this word started making me to think more and more about it after I published the first edition. What I mean by that is that I also included the Dokkodo text, the other 21 precepts. I mean, it's a short text, but it gives the principles that Musashi gives for the ones who want to follow his path. Here, well, you see, this Dokkodo is translated into English. You will find, if you write in Google, you will find some books published only on Dokkodo. I gave it in the book as a bonus, by the way, free. It's not another book, it is there. But it is translated as the path of aloneness, the way to go forth alone, or the way of walking alone, etc. Well, I had trouble in assuming this method. I didn't want to use the word alone from the beginning. Although this kanji may mean aloneness, obviously a genius like Musashi didn't want to say, if you walk after me, if you walk the way I did, you will be alone. This is not what he means. So I searched more into the meanings of this kanji, and you will find out that it is also used in words like dokuritsu, which means independence, like the independence war of Turkey. It is the independence, to be independent. So I was resolute. I said, okay, he meant to be independent. So I translated it into Turkish in the first edition as the way to independence. And I was content with it. But during the pandemic, while I was reworking on the text, I said, well, he's talking more about creativity, more about arts and curiosity and creative leadership. So in many places, uniqueness comes in. And when I reconsidered, I realized that this exact same kanji also means unique, like dokuji means uniqueness, unique to somebody, some person, some creator, some artist. So I finally have the feeling I have come to the right translation, including English, by the way. I mean, it doesn't have, English doesn't have to be the 10 Commandments. I mean, there is an alternative way of seeing this, and I believe this is the correct way. He is not saying, come after me to be alone. He's saying, come after me if you want to be unique. So, my alternative is the way to uniqueness. I changed this in the second edition. Özgünlüğe giden yol. So in this 21 precepts, another issue that I came across in translating is this precept, the 15th precept. It says here, Wagamini tari monoimi suru kotonashi. It means, well, if you read it as it is, it means, and it is translated into English as, do not act following customary beliefs. Well, I couldn't agree less. There is something more in this Japanese phrase. So I had translated in the first edition as, look after your body well. Goods have no meaning. Because waga means me, waga means my body, your body in context, ni itari until it reaches a level. Mono means things, goods. Imi in contemporary Japanese and in those times too means meaning. Suru meaning to give a meaning. Koto nashi means negative, so it doesn't mean. So this is how I translate it. Look after your body well. Wagamini itari, body well. Goods have no meaning. Okay, well, I was all right with this translation, but pandemic helped me. When I thought again about it, I was not that comfortable with this translation anyhow. So I problematized it and came up with this conclusion and found out that in the Tokugawa period, this word, which is extinct now in Japanese, nobody uses this, monoimi, is written like this, and it means fasting of the samurai. Fasting, you know, to keep hungry for long periods. It is like intermittent fasting or something like that. People like it these days. I think it's useful, by the way. Okay, so I arrived at the final authoritative, let's say, translation. He was trying to say, sorry, do not try to fast to a level that can damage your body. So I'm happy now. I can settle down. But it is not that easy, you know. It is written in hiragana. If it's kanji, you could understand easily. Then I would look for this. But in hiragana, you have to assume, you have to, imagine what it could have meant then. It means, imi means really, literally meaning. So, okay. Next, maybe the final example that I want to give. This is the monument that was built by his adopted son, Iori, on the memories of his father about 9 years after Musashi's death. This text is written by his son, of course, but is a very, intimate or very, how do you say, from a son to a father, very sincere feelings of how Iori saw his father as a hero. There, it starts with this. This is the memorial inscription for the valiant man who lives in two worlds, Shinmen Musashi Harunobu from Harima province, Akamatsu clan. Okay. The difficult part was in Turkish, at least, to have it sound like a Turkish inscription. So I used this phrase, "İki alemde yaşayan er kişi," which is more or less the valiant man who lives in two worlds. But it's a bit more inscription-like word, like, valiant. Instead of valiant, I could have used this, let's say, I could have used, let's say, courageous, or warrior, or etc. It says valiant man. So I purposely, cautiously used er kişi, which has more religious sound to it, and more like, let's say, suits a memorial stone for a deceased person. Okay, well, I think this is the final slide. This is the word, this is the introduction of the memorial inscription. Yuri says, his son says, his father has pronounced it in his final days. So, assuming we are listening to him via his inscription, I translated this phrase like this: look up to the skies with reverence, because for the art of war, which has reached the truth, death is not an end. So, dear friends, participants, don't you think he's still living? Even after 400 years later, we, in an irrelevant country, he would have never known a country like this. In a geography, in a time, 400 years, yeah, he is living among us. We are talking about him. honestly speaking, I admire him just because of this, to be able to live and be talked over 400 years later. So, well, thank you for coming and listening.